Okay, so this video is going to finish off with the last two kingdoms that we haven't yet seen. Remember, in the last video we said there were 5 kingdoms, 5 groups that we can classify organisms into, and we looked at plants, animals and fungi and what were their characteristics that define them. The first one this week is bacteria. Now, bacteria are small single-celled organisms that are so small they're called what we call microscopic, and you can only see them under a microscope, this little piece of equipment that you can see in the top right hand corner. Their cells themselves are extremely small, much smaller than an animal cell or a plant cell. So it's not only because they're unicellular or single-celled, it's also because their cells are very small. However, they do have similarities, so their cells have similarities with other organisms. They have a cell membrane, cytoplasm. Like plant and fungi cells, they have a cell wall. But there are crucial differences. The DNA that we have in other organisms is spiral shaped, and it's also found in the nucleus structure. Remember the video on plant cell structures. Bacteria don't have a nucleus, and instead they just have a circular loop of DNA with small circles of DNA floating around in the cell. Now, the small ones are called plasmids, and they can be transferred between bacteria, and indeed that's how antibiotic resistance spreads. Their cell wall is also different. It's made of a different substance to plants and fungi. So although they share the structure, it's fundamentally different. Bacteria can photosynthesize like plants, but most of them don't. Instead, they absorb their nutrients from decaying matter and living matter. For instance, the ones that tend to get their nutrients from living things will be the ones that damage and make you ill, whereas the ones that get their nutrients from decaying matter are vitally important, because otherwise we'd have lots of dead organisms and plants just building up all around the place, and although they would decay slowly, bacteria help to break them down much faster. 2 bacteria that are very important to us. This one, Lactobacillus bulgaricus, is a rod-shaped bacteria. You've actually seen a picture of lots of them, and it's actually used for creating yogurt, because naturally it ferments and breaks down milk to get its nutrients. So what we do is put it into the milk, and as it ferments it solidifies it and turns it into yogurt. So we've actually taken advantage of this bacteria and used it for our own means. Another one here is pneumococcus. Like the picture of the Lactobacillus bulgaricus, this picture shows more than one pneumococcus, and each sphere is a bacteria. Pneumococcus is most famous because, or most well known I should say, because it causes pneumonia, a deadly illness in humans, particularly for older people or babies. The 5th kingdom, so the last kingdom, is Protoctista. Now, Protoctista are a bit of a weird group because we tend to put the odds and sods in this group, the ones that don't really fit in with other kingdoms. They're kind of like a group where nature was experimenting around, wondering what to do and wasn't quite sure which kingdom to put them in. Most of them are microscopic. Some of them are in such large numbers that you can see them, and some of them can be microscopic and unicellular at different times of their life cycle, but most are unicellular and microscopic as well. Some have the characteristics of animal cells. So this amoeba is found in pond water. It's unicellular, single-celled, but it hasn't got the nucleus and the circular DNA of a bacteria. It's got a nucleus, it's got helix-shaped, spiral-shaped DNA, so it definitely doesn't fit into the bacterial kingdom. Here we've got chlorella. Now, chlorella is able to photosynthesize. It uses chlorophyll to photosynthesize. So this cell has more the structures of a plant cell, but again, it's unicellular, it's single-celled, so it doesn't fit into the plant group. A last example for you is this one. You can see bursting out of a cell called Plasmodium. Plasmodium is a dangerous protoctista, and in fact it kills the most people every year out of any living organism. It's actually the one that causes malaria. So you may have heard that mosquitoes cause malaria, but that's wrong. The mosquito transfers Plasmodium from one organism to another whenever it sucks out blood. So the Plasmodium damages cells, bursting out of them, and this can easily kill somebody by the illness called malaria. Now, those are the 5 kingdoms of living organisms, but we've also got another group of microorganisms called the viruses. Now, viruses aren't living, so we don't give them a kingdom of their own, but sometimes they are classified in microorganisms or microbes, because you can only see them under the microscope, and they've got some of the characteristics of living things, and they're also very important because they cause a lot of diseases and illnesses. Viruses don't have the normal cell structure. They have a protein outer coat, and if you're wondering what a protein is, the next video is probably going to be on the different types of molecules we've got. So they don't have a cell membrane, and they do have a bit of DNA inside, but again, this isn't in a nucleus or anything. And what they'll do is they'll inject that DNA into a cell, and a host cell, the cell of some organism, and that takes over the cell, causing it to make more viruses. So they can't actually reproduce on their own. The picture in the middle here shows a virus, the little reddy brown structure, infecting a human cell, and it's probably going to take over that cell, destroy it, and make lots more viruses. Down below, this shows an example of the damage caused by a virus. This is a tobacco leaf from a tobacco plant, and it's got a virus that has infected it, and it's starting to damage the cells, causing it to lose the chloroplast that it needs to produce nutrients. It's called the tobacco mosaic virus, and you can compare the leaf on the right, which has been infected, with the one on the left, and you can see the damage the virus is doing. This virus is known as influenza. You may have even been infected by this virus if you've had the illness called the flu. Flu isn't as harmful as things like malaria, but it can be deadly in older people or in babies, so we have to be very careful with it. The last virus we've got here, similar sort of shape to influenza, but much more deadly, is the HIV virus. And if you had this virus, it would probably eventually kill you. We have no known cure to it at the moment. It's quite deadly because it infects your white blood cells, the ones that actually help to protect you. So as your body tries to protect itself by sending out white blood cells, HIV will attack them and use them to produce more of the virus. Any microorganism that invades your body, goes inside and causes harm, is known as a pathogen. So bacteria, fungi and viruses can all be, and protoctista can all be pathogens and damage your body. So see if you can answer these questions. The first 5 are about the kingdoms and which ones they're talking about. Notice I've also included the virus group in here as well. So, which kingdom or group is mainly unicellular, single-celled, and contains the amoeba? Which has no cell membrane or wall and instead has a protein coat and infects host cells, the cells of other organisms? Which can sometimes photosynthesize like plants, but also have cells with the characteristics of animal cells? Which has a cell wall and cell membrane, but has circular DNA? Which contains the organisms Plasmodium and Chlorella? And then, can you name the organisms that infect and harm the body? Okay, so pause the video if you don't want the answers. And there you go. Protoctista are the ones that are mainly unicellular, and amoeba is an important one that lives in pond water. Viruses don't have the cell membrane or wall, they've got that protein coat. Protoctista again is the one that can sometimes photosynthesize, but has the characteristics of animal cells as well sometimes. Bacteria have the cell wall and cell membrane, but crucially they've got that circular DNA without the nucleus. Protoctista contain Plasmodium and Chlorella, and then the name we give to organisms that infect and harm the body are pathogens.